Let's begin. Do we have any public comment this morning?
No comment, thank you.
Thank you, Reed. Okay, hearing none, let's go ahead and proceed to the review of the minutes from February 3rd.
I make a motion to accept the minutes.
I'll second.
Thank you, Laura. Thank you, Carl. Any further discussion?
Look good to me.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Thank you very much. And next up, Jens, you're going to speak to us again about some significant wildlife habitat items.
I'm ready to go. Should I start?
Please, unless Melinda, you need a moment to get anything up on the screen.
Can everyone see that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
And do.
And Jens, is this how you want to do it? Have me run the slides?
I have a new computer, about 2 months old, so I know it's going to work. I'd rather run my own slides just because there are a couple of animations in there.
Sure. Let me make you a co-host. Okay, and I'm going to stop sharing, and then you can share.
Great, and you should be seeing my screen, yes?
Yes.
Great. Well, thank you all so much for having me this morning. It's a real pleasure to be with you. You guys have a closed caption. That's cool. Anyway, let me just remind you. This is the general pattern. When we last met, this was the big picture pattern that we talked about wanting to reinforce, with these larger forest blocks, these smaller stepping stone blocks, and then a few of these micro connectors, the wildlife road crossings and the surface water and riparian areas. You had asked me to go back and create 2 new products. One of them, it was a refinement of the habitat blocks from 2014. And what you see on screen is that effort. So there are now, according to this analysis, there are 46 habitat blocks. And I'll go through how those are the same and different than previous products. But I just wanted to put this up there first and show you the end. So now we'll need to go through and prioritize these for Act 171 purposes. That's just to say which are the most important for different uses and how you want to handle them. but we now have at least a more accurate spatial area with which to do that prioritization. Any questions at this early juncture? Feel free to jump in. Okay. The other product that you'd asked me to create was a new version of the connecting lands. And so what you see on screen in blue is that new effort. So there are 133 identified crossings here on screen using this new methodology. And I'll go through the methodology that created these as well. Please note that none of these are on I-89, given the quality of the habitat. You know, the habitat is pretty far back away from the road. But I will show you all of the bridge and culvert infrastructure on I-89 in Williston, where we do have opportunities to maintain connectivity into the future. So while this model doesn't address those opportunities, you know, the bridge and culvert infrastructure does address those opportunities. Okay, so those are the products. Now I'm going to double back and show you how these came to be, what I've done for you, and then we'll come back and we'll show these products again at the end to discuss them. Okay, so the forest blocks. So I have the new product in blue underneath, and on top I put this the 2014 habitat blocks. That's the one we were using before, right? And so I wanted to show you how this new product includes this connecting land, right? It includes habitat that will go all the way down to the road. It is much, much more accurate in terms of the boundary that it includes. But it does bring us into this world of including yards and backyard habitat as part of the block. So it's a bit of a departure from the 2014 product that was really exclusively the block itself. We now have the block plus connecting land is really what we're seeing here. And some of that connecting land is backyards and is not particularly useful to wildlife, but some of it in between those houses is going to be more useful to wildlife. So we've added a bit of noise, but we've also added a bit more detail. You can also see some of the errors from that some of the other errors, or I should say an error in the other direction from that 2014 data set. So this is a place right here where there is no blue underneath. That's where that orangey red goes right across a field. So I'm showing you error in the 2014 where it didn't pick up enough. And now I'm showing you error in the 2014 where it picked up too much. There were very few of these errors where it picked up too much. But at this point, I do not have a way of getting rid of those. Every data set is going to have a certain amount of error or slop or noise, whatever you want to call it. And I'm just showing you that there are going to be a couple places in this one where we still inherit some of the error from that 2014 product, even though we've done such a better job with the edge than that original. Any questions about that? I'll give you another couple of shots at seeing that. All right. So there are really two options. This is related to what I just showed you. There are two options. And one of them is we can just use that new forest canopy product, the LiDAR derived forest canopy data. And that I have in brown. And that includes those connecting lands. It misses other types of natural cover. So I didn't choose this option. What I did choose is using this option where I took the 2014 habitat blocks I merged those. Well, union is the technical word. I merged those with the dissolved forest canopy. So I'm using both together as a single layer. And that's why we're going to inherit that error that I just showed you of where the 2014 includes lands that it shouldn't. But that's, I looked at both products. If we went with just this top option, there are so many holes in here. Any wetland, vernal pool that isn't strictly speaking forest gets pulled out. So in this option, the brown option, there's so many internal holes in the polygons that I did not find it to be a useful product. So the product that I did, it includes these connecting lands at the edges. It includes all that other natural cover. And I neglected to mention that it also, we also now include right-of-ways. Right-of-ways are pretty good habitat connectors in the grand scheme of things. And they were not included in the forest canopy, the brown, but they are included in the 2014. So again, the reason why I merged those two products. Okay. All right, so let me just show you now in a little bit more detail the steps. So I'm talking about that bottom option, the final product that I created. Just wanted to show you that forest canopy itself as a product does go over the roads, just as trees go over the roads. So when you start with a product like that, the roads don't define blocks. So I had to burn the roads into the data set to make it reflect where roads are. So you'll see I put in a 20-foot buffer on the center line of the road itself, 20 feet on both sides of the center line, and then I deleted that from the forest canopy. So what it does, in total, it makes, I deleted an area of 40 feet. And on these class 3 roads, you'll see that leaves about 8 feet here between what I see as the road edge and the beginning of the canopy itself. So there's about 1 car width in between the edge of the road and the beginning of where forest canopy gets picked up. For the interstate, that same buffer takes us right out to the edge of the road surface itself. Given that there are errors in how the forest how 2 layers will display on the same map, I think this is a totally acceptable distance to have it deleted from the original. Okay, so here's the next piece. So I'm still talking about this product where I've joined the 2014 habitat blocks and the new forest canopy. When you complete those steps that I've just shown you, you're left with 27,120 separate polygons. Okay, I told you there were 46. There are 46 that are larger than 20 acres. There are 239 that are larger than 1 acre. And then there are, whatever the difference of that is, 26,000 that are smaller than 1 acre. I don't consider these good habitat in and of themselves, but I did want to flag that we might use these later because trees that show up within the corridors might be useful to us. And so we don't want to just completely delete these 26,000 additional polygons. We want to take a look at where they fall first in relation to the corridors. Any questions here?
I just want to say I'm with you, Jens, and this is great stuff. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you, Reed. All right. So then here are the 2. This is at left has the 27,000 features. At right has just the 46, and these are classed by size, darker, bigger. These are the same data sets. I just pulled out the 46 for the right and at left are the full 27,000. But again, some of these might be useful to us as we think about corridors. And so that'll be a next step later down the road. Okay, while I'm on the subject of comparing these to the old product, at left is the 2014 habitat blocks. At right is the new product. You'll see where we picked up additional land using that forest canopy. And I did 3 circles here on the slide at right to show you where the use of that forest canopy really picked up a tremendous, a lot more land. Now, I know some of this is going to be lower quality habitat, but it is still going to be important for connectivity. So I'm proud of what's happened here.
Could you go over the specific color codes on the new map, the one on the right, including what the white areas are?
Sure. These are classed by size. And so do I have the classes? I think it's like 20 to 100 acres is going to be that white. 100 to 250 is going to be that light. 250 to 500 is going to be this darker. I'm one class off because then I go from 500 up to the biggest one, which I think is 2,000 or something in that darkest class. So there are 5 classes, and these 2 data sets, even though they're different data sets, I class them the same way for exact comparison. That help, Carl?
That helps. It would be useful to have that key right on the map.
Sure. Yeah, I'm just comparing products at this point, but yes, I sure will on anything that I release to you in paper. I will sure do that. No problem. And we can change the classing as we see fit. Okay. So now let's just take a look at what happens here with the connecting lands in terms of the methodology for the connecting lands. So I just zoomed into one piece of Williston there by Old Creamery Road. I've just added the forest canopy and wetland data. Again, I'm now showing you the methodology for how we got those wildlife road crossings, those 133 wildlife road crossings. So we started with that same product, the forest canopy, shown here in green. Then I merged in the wetlands, and here are the wetlands to show you. So the light green is the forest canopy. These other 3 colors are the wetlands. There's an emergent class, emergent wetlands here in this lightest color, tan maybe, a scrub shrub wetland in the orange, and forested wetlands in the dark green. Now, in terms of the 2016 wetland supplemental land cover data that we used here, the most error we're going to have is in this emergent class. That's the one that's the most difficult to identify from using LiDAR. It's not a big deal, but that's where we introduce error for this particular data set. So let me just show you how that compares to the Vermont Significant Wetland Inventory. So at right is the 2016 wetland product that I added to create these wildlife road crossings. At left is the Vermont Significant Wetland Inventory. And I just wanted to show you that the 2016 product is more expansive, particularly with regard to this emergent class. These are not for the blocks. These are for the wildlife road crossings, the 133. But that is going to give us a little bit of error, but it also, but it's real. It's based on so I think we're getting more accuracy, but we're also taking on a little bit of noise. Any questions about this comparison now between these two data sets? Sorry, I didn't send off, I didn't have a slide that announced that I was switching to the wildlife road crossings. Okay. So then, as I explained the last time we met, I took this forest canopy and wetland product. I put squares of buffer on the road. And the most time spent was figuring out what's the most appropriate unit of analysis. How big of a square should we analyze? The product I settled on has 200 feet along the road. So 200 feet of a 200-foot road segment is the unit of analysis, and it goes back away from the road 75 meters. Sorry to switch units on you. I have no idea why we did that. So it's a box that's 200 feet by 75 meters, and that's the unit of analysis. The reason that matters is because we're trying to see where habitat goes from the road's edge all the way back closer to the habitat block. And so we want to get it as far away from the road as we can to really see which of these little threads are viable going all the way back to the forest edge. But if we go too far back, we make a huge block, a huge box, our unit of analysis, and then you need lots and lots of cover to reach the threshold to flag that block. So my point here is it's just a bit of an iterative process to figure out the right size of the square. I tried this first in Waitsfield, then I did it again at the scale of the entire Mad River Valley, then I did it in Shrewsbury, and then I tried it in Williston. So I feel pretty good, given those very different situations, that 200-foot by 75-meter box is a pretty good unit of analysis.
Question, Jens?
Please.
How does that compare to Waitsfield and the other towns? Is that, where does ours come out and why? Or is it the same?
I used the same, I'm sorry. I was trying to process your question. I used the same size boxes for all of those towns. I played with all of those case studies to come up with that 20-meter by 75-meter.
Awesome, thank you.
Okay, so first we create these boxes on the whole road surface. Then we analyze which of those boxes has greater than 85% cover. And we do it separately from the left side. It doesn't matter which is left and right, but just from one side, I'll call it left, and the other side. So here you see that there's good cover on this left side, and that this doesn't get picked up as cover on the right side. But here we have good cover on both sides. And so then we flag individual road segments that meet that criteria, where they have 85% cover left, 85% cover right. I'm sorry, some of my boxes don't display in here, but I know the analysis was done even though the box isn't displaying, so don't worry about it. So this is how those 133 segments came to be, is looking at that forest canopy on both sides of the road. And so then here's that final product. Okay, I'm about to switch gears to looking at the highway. Any questions about these wildlife road crossings?
Jens, I noticed that the circ is flagged as a road crossing, and I'm wondering, see up here?
Oh, is it this long one?
Yeah. So I'm
Damn.
wondering if that's just if that could just be taken out because it's not really a road.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Gosh, that messed me up. Thank you so much for catching that. I caught it on the forest blocks. I had this weird shape in one of my forest blocks, and I had to go back through and figure out what it was. And there was a hidden code for the circ in the road crossings that created that created a boundary in the forest block. And so I was able to get rid of it for that product. I forgot to go back and check if it had affected this product as well. So thanks for that catch. Yeah, please make sure we capture that in the minutes so I don't forget.
See, Jens, could you go back to that last slide? The one where you were showing Creamery Road? So you've got Old Creamery Road and it crosses over to Mud Pond. And it says Town Road 22?
Town Highway 22, yeah.
That's not really a road anymore, is it? Isn't that the Vast Trail? Because Mud Pond doesn't go all the way through, right? I think Mud Pond's a dead end.
That's correct.
Yeah, that just confused me because that's my little adopt-a-trail section.
This
So
little segment of road doesn't exist either?
no.
Okay,
No.
so that's another error.
Well, it used to be a class 4 road
Yeah.
until it was, until the beavers built the pond back there, and then it was no longer a road.
I
Right.
mean, Jens, I'm also happy to kind of give this a look over and just catch any additional of those, those ancient roads or whatever that may be in here.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
I used the VTrans road center lines. So I thought I was using a quality product, but I just didn't go through and clean up enough of the codes beforehand. It should be that class 4 roads are not considered a fragmenting feature. Class 3 roads are considered a fragmenting feature. Thanks for those catches. That's really helpful.
And Jens, I'll just add that this is a pretty amazing analysis, and don't sweat the fact that you don't know have the local background and knowledge to pick up on some of these dead roads.
Thanks, Eric. All right. So anything else about this? I really do appreciate this feedback. It's going to make for a better product. All right, let's just look at a few bridges and culverts on 89. So I'm going to go from west to east. So your first one, South Brownell Road. There's South Brownell Road goes over I-89, and then just to the east of it, you'll see that little dot on my map. Just to the east of it, there is a culvert as well. And so if you look at the quality of the habitat, we certainly do have connecting lands getting quite close to the highway here. So this is a culvert I think we want to flag. You have somebody in the waiting room.
Got it.
This is a culvert we'll want to flag as a potential crossing area. I'm not particularly interested in this, the South Brownell Road over 89. Though there, right near the abutments, there is going to be some connectivity under South Brownell. What I'm worried about is getting under I-89, and this culvert is an opportunity. Okay, next one is Oak Hill Road, and we see it here. To the west, there's still some good connecting habitat. The structure itself, I have this. Yeah. The structure itself is a huge extended bridge across 89. And so right up here, that's this picture, is the abutment right up here. So there is some potential for along the highway movement under Oak Hill Road, but no real crossing 89 potential here. Okay. The next one is just affectionately called 59 for South. And this is Oak Hill, so it's this one. If you see my pointer connecting that wetland, there's even some habitat in the median in between the two barrels. But here's what that looks like. And for many species, this is a tremendous connectivity opportunity. There is some dry ground on both sides. There's even a little shelf here. at normal flow levels, you know, mink, any of the weasel family would use this. Beaver, even bobcat, deer might even use that, given the height. So this is a real opportunity for connectivity, this structure here. Oh, and I just wanted to point out that the map, the other map that you see on these pages is from V-Transparency, and that's how you can get these photos for yourself. V-Transparency, you can get into the bridge inspection photos, and so you can look up the statistics of every single structure and actually see the pictures of it. And so you can figure out the whole history of every structure on the state system using V-Transparency. And that's what's done here. Okay, so then that's it for infrastructure on I-89. So I think there are at least a couple of culverts that we'll want to keep our eyes on and learn more about. You know, when they the structures, the hydraulics standards have changed since Hurricane Irene to go to 1.1 times bank full width. Bank full is how wide the stream is at normal flows. It's more complicated than that, but that's a great shorthand. And so they're now designing the structures to be a little wider than that stream channel at normal flows. From a wildlife standpoint, that usually creates great outcomes. You don't need a special structure designed for wildlife. When they do replace to 1.1 times bank full, this tiny structure will become a much, much more significant structure when they replace to that standard.
Is there, is there any, I know there was a group working on the whole, you know, they were going to upgrade the whole 89 area there. Is there any discussion about improving any of those culverts, or is that way off in the future?
The way V-Trans works, they only take in 60% of the funding they need every year for the basic maintenance that we do. So they're not going to be replacing any culverts that aren't going to collapse in the near future. So the game is you identify the ones that are most important, and then you wait for them to get to the end of their service life. And then when it's time to replace them, you remind V-Trans that they're actually really important for wildlife. And yeah. Does that help?
Do you have wildlife cameras at any of these culverts?
Not in Williston, no, I don't. I have a few in Bolton and Waterbury still. I have a picture of a gray fox emerging from a 320-foot pipe that was only 4 feet wide. So structures like what we see on screen, you know, are moving a much larger array of species than something that's as long as and narrow as the one I have pictures of fox using.
So Jens, that's a good point you made about the fact that V-Trans has their replacement and maintenance schedule based on the lifespan, service span of the each culvert. I'm wondering if you know, if in my experience with other projects around the basin, around Lake Champlain anyway, if you know, if an organization or if a town or Trout Unlimited or whoever are able to generate enough, provide enough funding to replace a culvert for other purposes, you know, whether it's for water quality or habitat or wildlife movement, V-Trans could accelerate that particular culvert in their maintenance schedule.
That's true. That's certainly true. That said, these are structures on I-89, so they are built to a higher standard than the rest of the state road system. And so this is going to have a price tag that is off the charts.
Very high, yep.
Yeah. Most of the work involved here is the digging on the highway. That's the most expensive part about appropriately sizing
right.
a culvert. And so just the digging costs of getting from the road surface down to the down to it and staging it so you don't close the northbound and the southbound at the same time. Yeah,
Yep.
this would be a multi-million-dollar project.
Is there
But
any,
yes, your point's well taken, Eric.
is there any crossing between the end of Johnson Lane and South Road? Or is that?
Forgive me, the extent of my Williston geography is limited. I have no idea where that is, but
Okay,
I
it's just to the east of this culvert.
there's no infrastructure on the highway system east of here that is still in the town of Williston.
Okay, so the answer to my question is no.
I think so, yes. Yeah,
Just
there is,
a-
but
Just a note of interest that 59 4S used to be part of the vast trail before snowmobiles got a little bigger.
oh, interesting.
Hmm.
Yeah, it is curious why it's such a big structure. That's neat. Thanks. Okay. All right. I'm just going to keep going and just look at some potential issues with the model. So down here, I just circled 3 places where gosh, I want to know more. The model didn't pick up any crossing going 75 meters away from the road center line, but the connecting lands do get quite close. And so there are a few places here that I've circled in this purple color that I'm curious about. The 133 wildlife road crossings that I have identified are in that in this color purple. And then these more awkward and thicker lines are the ones I just drew in to flag a few areas. So there are these that are of interest to me on 2A. And then there's a section here on Oak Hill near the intersection with Oak Creamery. And I know you just told me that that's not a real road, which makes me even more excited about this area as a potential connectivity area. And then here are a couple on Oak Hill. And here's one in the I-89 area, that is east of where we were just looking on 49.5S, I believe. So anyway, there are a few places here that, and here's the last one on North Williston Road. So there are a few places where the model didn't pick things up that we might want to do a little bit more work. Okay. And then the last one is up here, River. This is the town boundary in red, River Cove Road. Here's the Winooski, obviously. And it's good quality wetland on both sides of the road. And there's a little town-owned structure here that had me interested. Okay, so the purpose of these last few slides was just to show, I'm pretty happy with this product of 133. Obviously, there are some errors. We identified the circ, we identified a few other ancient roads, and then we identified places from a habitat perspective that might warrant a little bit more attention. But generally, I think we are on a good track. And with that, I'm just going to go back to those earliest slides. And show you those 2 products. All right, so that's what I have for you today. Tell me what you're thinking, questions, concerns, comments. And I'm right near the block slide, so we can go back and forth to either one of those that you want to talk about.
So were some of these areas, places that you were putting up some wildlife crossing signs, or this is just for us to figure out where all these wildlife crossings will end up?
piece number one, signage does not actually affect driver behavior. There's no evidence that drivers slow down when they see a wildlife road crossing sign. So from a wildlife perspective, it's not particularly worthwhile to invest in signage. My purpose in identifying these was for your process in Williston in the town, both from an Act 171 perspective, where you could mention these in your town plan, to the significant wildlife habitat map, where you could take your existing corridors, we can fine tune them, and then add in these wildlife road crossings to make your wildlife corridors even better. Does that help, Terry?
Mhm. Thanks.
And kind of along those lines, I think that these may play a role in development review. So for example, if there's a development proposed, adjacent to a wildlife road crossing, we may want to include some conditions to try and protect some portion of that wildlife crossing.
Mhm. Jens, is just a quick question. So west of Oak Hill Road, right at the end of Bradley Lane, Bradley Lane is also, go a little to the right, Melinda. Keep going, keep going, keep going. Next blue dot. Yeah. So that is also an abandoned road, but there's a culvert right there. And I just wondered if that's the reason that it's in blue on both sides.
No. For the only place I looked at culvert infrastructure was on the I-89. For other road segments, it was just the quality of the habitat, the tree and wetlands on both sides of the road that flag that flag a wildlife road crossing. That said, where there is riparian cover on both sides of the road is usually where there's streams on both sides of the road, is usually where there are culverts going under the road. So, I expect many of these 133 would have culverts underneath as well.
Thank you.
In order to look at the town road infrastructure, you need to go to vtculverts.org. That data was collected probably by you, Melinda, or others at the town or the RPC level. It's not collected by transportation engineers. So the data, because it's compiled by so many people, the VT culverts data tends to be a little bit messier of a data set, less curated than the VT culverts is maybe a nice way of saying it. And so I always take that one with a grain of salt. But your point is well taken that where there are culverts under these 133, getting wildlife to move under the road is a better call than over the road crossing. What else are people thinking about?
I guess one of my thoughts has been to take the habitat blocks layer, or the core habitat layer, and do some kind of prioritization, just so that, like for example, the regulations sort of have a blanket regulation for all of the significant wildlife habitat area, that basically just says, try to avoid it, try to avoid impacting it, and do a habitat assessment, a habitat disturbance assessment. But I guess I'm wondering if there can be a more refined approach, like, in these high priority blocks, we really don't want you to develop at all. in these, and then maybe these other ones that aren't as critical, you there could be more flexibility, or there, I don't know, something like that, I guess.
Yeah, so we're talking about the next step now of taking these blocks and prioritizing them and making them more useful to your significant wildlife habitat map. I agree that a prioritization is a great way to go. Frankly, now that we have the better area for these blocks, even the prioritization, Melinda, that you suggested in our last round in that PowerPoint would be a great way to go. And I think could, because we're trying to now that we have good boundaries, we're just trying to look for the other values that would make the block light up. So that process that you laid out of assigning points, I think is totally appropriate. As I mentioned the last time we met, the only issue I saw there was perhaps undervaluing the riparian in terms of the point score. But I'm with you all. I am ready to take this product to that next level. My work is not done here. I just wanted to get you guys these base products, and now let's figure out how we can use them and refine them. Clearly, I have a lot of work to do on the 133, but I think the next step for the forest blocks is that prioritization that you spoke of.
Cool.
That sounds great.
So specifically, what should we shoot for the next meeting?
I think it could be useful to just do like an initial prioritization with those. I don't know. That's my thought, I guess.
An initial prioritization of the 46
Yeah.
to look at how those sit. Yes.
Yeah. Could be useful.
I think that would be great, and cleaning up the 133, the wildlife road crossings.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I can
Melinda-
certainly help with that, with the cleanup of the road crossings based on what I know about the roads.